What is going on, guys? WhiteBoyIsAngry here, and you may see a lot of YouTubers lately getting onto the trend of doing Draw My Life. Well, I'm not doing that for you today, but what I am going to do, I know there are a lot of YouTube channels or people that say, I'm definitely a gamer, but the fact is they haven't played a video game other than Mario Kart in their life. Well, today I'm gonna go through my entire gaming history from the moment I was born to now. So that's quite a long time. I'm drawing this and drawing too long. Anyways, here we go. My gaming history would begin when I am a kindergartner, 5 years old. It was the first time, not when I had played a video game, but when I had heard about gaming in general. In other words, the PlayStation 1 is what I'm talking about, and the funny thing is, I heard somebody say that they got a PlayStation, and it was, of course, the coolest thing in the world, oh my gosh, PlayStation, and I acted like I knew what it was, but really, I thought that a PlayStation was like one of those little plastic house things, like all the 90s kids had, and I had no clue what a PlayStation was, so I would count it as my first time hearing about gaming, but I still didn't really know what it was. And after the PlayStation 1 came the Game Boy Advance, and I'm not talking about just your regular Game Boy Advance, this is the Game Boy Advance SP. Now, this again was not something that I owned, but rather my neighbors owned it, and this was my first immersion into gaming. Games that I used to play on that, like Harry Potter, was actually probably Kim Possible. Those were the games I played because my neighbor is a girl. So yes, that is what I used to play on the Game Boy Advance. I didn't have a lot of history with it other than being jealous, and my mom told me that she would get me one when I was 15, which obviously by the time I was 15, the Game Boy Advance was not the coolest thing on the market. After the Game Boy Advance, I sort of guess I got into PC gaming, you could say. It was mainly just things like addicting games, but I did get into Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Island Thunder, which is an older game. I think it was 2001 when it came out, so it was an older game, not very graphics intensive because we didn't have the nicest computer in the world. In fact, you're seeing it right now, and yeah, it just really wasn't a big, huge immersion into gaming, but it was my first time ever actually getting into gaming on my own without ever having other people get it. After PC, the short little PC stint that I had there, I went into PS2. That was the coolest thing in the world back then, and the games I liked to play, it wasn't mine, but it was my neighbor's, once again, not the girl, this is a different neighbor. The games I like to play on the PS2 are Grand Theft Auto Vice City, which was just the coolest game in the world. And it wasn't Vice City, it was Vice City Stories. It was the coolest game in the world. I had the entire map memorized, half of the map. I had an entire island memorized. I played that game religiously, and it was the first game that I really got sort of, I guess you could say, drawn into, to the point where I would be staying up all night long, oh my gosh. And this is about when I was maybe 11, 12 years old, so it was really the first game that I ever got just to the point where I couldn't stop playing, when I sort of got to love gaming. And then Liberty City Stories, I did not play as much as Vice City Stories, but it was still another game that I liked to play, and it really was the first time I had played on a console, and it was the first time that I started to like gaming and know what it is. And then after PS2, I got back into PC, I guess, for a little bit, more addicting games, and then we got some Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, which was awesome. We played that game a ton, and by we I mean my brother and myself. And then John Deere American Farmer Deluxe. That game was awesome as well, because we live out in the country, so farming is a big thing around here, and how we could go on our computers and play it was just really cool. So those two games weren't ones that I really got addicted to, but they were ones that would really just take up my free time. And then addicting games, of course, was something that I used to do a lot. Now is when we get into the major parts, and I'm talking last 2 years actually, of my gaming history, which is Xbox, and that is really just the big pivotal moment in my gaming history, the thing that I really solely focused my gaming around. And there was one specific game. Okay, I guess I will tell you, before this game came out, I played MW2, and I really didn't get into it. I didn't do a lot of MW2. It was just pretty much, it was to the point where there were so many good people. The game was so old that it was just impossible to play on, and it got to the point where I was just like, I don't even like to play this. But then, that's when the game came out. My game, the one that I really loved, Modern Warfare 3. I don't know, it seems really weird that would be the game that a person really gets into the most, but it was for me, because it was the first time I had really, I'm using really so much, but it's the first time that I actually waited for a game to come out, and I was anticipating the day when it would come out, watching all the trailers, the release videos, all the stuff, people talking about it, and when it came out, I just beasted it up on that game. I love that game so much, and it was the first time that when Black Ops 2 came out, which is a game I didn't really play very much, when Black Ops 2 came out and Modern Warfare 3 started to sort of spiral down in popularity, and it became like Modern Warfare 2, where you had to have like 20 people online at a time. It wasn't that bad, but it was pretty low numbers compared to what it was at its peak, and it really was just weird for me to see my favorite game in the world, one that I could do awesome at, just to be left behind. And I know a lot of other people had already been used to that, but it was the first time I had really gotten into a game that much, and seeing it sort of just gone in an instant was, I don't know, it was weird for me, and it was something that I had to get used to. And after that happened, I didn't have Xbox Live after that, so what I used to do after MW3 was I started to play Forza 4. Forza 4 is another game that I really loved. I love the Forza series because I like racing games. I consider myself good at racing games. I really like them a lot. And Forza was another game where I really anticipated it. I watched trailers, just like MW3, but I never got as enveloped in the game as MW3. In fact, just this year, this is 2 years after I played Modern Warfare 3, I can remember the entire map of Dome, and then some other map I can't remember the name of, but I can remember the entire map, and that, I can't obviously do that with Forza. I can't, remember every single car I had. I can remember some things. I can remember my first car that I bought and built myself was a Mustang. And that's really all I remember. But Forza 4 was a fun game. I liked to play it a lot. I spent a lot of time playing it too. And in fact, I still play it a little bit when I go over to my brother's dorm, which is the reason I'm now out of the Xbox area. But before we get to where I am now, I'm going to go backwards again and talk about my mobile gaming. It wasn't really a huge... It was more of an era during the Xbox. When I wouldn't be playing Xbox, I'd be playing on my iPod, which I no longer have, but the game I would play on that a lot, and I mean, it was pretty much the only game you could get, because it was a second generation iPod, and by the time I got it, there was already the 4th gen, and the 5th gen was coming out, and it was getting left behind. Nobody was making games for it, except for Junk Jack. Junk Jack was the coolest game out for the 2nd gen iPod. It was essentially the only game out that was really worth it, I think, in my own opinion. Yes, Junk Jack was very cool, and I've even considered buying another iPod just to play the game. That's how much I loved it. And that's mainly because, back to PC, we go again. Minecraft is a game that I still love to play. It's a game really the first PC game that I really got addicted to, that I love to play, and that I still love to play now, because it's infinite. It's you'll never have the same thing happen twice, which I love about a game, and the fact that you can just go around and do whatever you want, I love. Also, I guess along the lines of that sort of concept, I now play Terraria a little bit. I uploaded a video of it, but I wasn't too proud of it, so I just took it down a couple days after I uploaded it. So, yeah, Terraria is another game that I'm kind of liking to play. Okay, and by the way, that Minecraft, let's go back a little bit. That Minecraft thing that I drew, I really, for being a game that I like so much, I really should have taken more time on that drawing. I really did not put as much. I mean, if you go back and look at MW3, I put like as much time as I could into that. And I don't know if you saw, but the Vice City and the Liberty City covers, those things are just like, I made the letters and I was like, okay, this is fine. And then when I started to draw the backgrounds, I was like, I don't have the time for this, and I was getting so tired of doing it, so I just like threw some crap down and just was like, call it good, move on to the next thing. So it's horrible, but anyways, yeah, Minecraft, I kind of owe you a little bit more. So anyways, back to Terraria. I've sort of recently started playing it. It's not really one that I can say that I'm in love with or one that I'm addicted to yet, but I'm sure it will be in the future, just because it's that same Minecraft concept, but with a new spin, and it is a lot like Chunk Jack, which is another game that I like. Alright guys, after that point, I just sort of went on to this long 15-minute rant thing about stuff that had nothing to do with it, like the CPU I had in my computer and the graphics card. And it just drew on for way too long, so I just am going to cut the video there. And if you like the video, be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. Run